stone does not bend with the wind. It does not fall victim to floods. It shields us from the tempest. It remains long after we're gone, quarried with sweat. It weaves the fabric of our hopes, and in its embrace, we will find our peace.
Hello everyone.
Hi everyone.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you everyone for coming to our developer live stream during Twitch. We will present to you the upcoming Against the Storm Keepers of the Stone DLC and the fishing update 1.4. We've been doing our best to make sure the stream is in the best technical state, but as always, the moment when we press go live, something needs to go wrong. So probably today something's wrong as well.
Yeah.
And I already see in the chat that there's an echo. But while I try to resolve the issue, let's move on to presenting you the new content. We'll start with the Keepers of the Stone DLC because this is the big one. We are finally adding frogs to the game after what it's been like 1.5 years since we first introduced frogs in the frogs in the community vote. It was February 2023. We let people in early access vote for the next species. There were 3 to choose from. It was foxes, frogs, and bats. Foxes won, but we loved frogs so much that we had to do it. Okay, so
you focus on the echo, and I'll just do a quick introduction on what new is coming tomorrow, because it's happening tomorrow, quite soon actually. So as Luke said, we're releasing the DLC, Keepers of the Stone. The new frog race is there. There's this new biome there. There's a few new things in terms of content, but at the same time, we're also releasing the 1.4 patch, which is available to everyone, regardless if you own the DLC or is the echo still there?
Yeah, let us know if the echo is still here.
Okay, so I'm gonna just move on, and if the echo is still... Oh, it's good now, great. So regardless if you own the DLC or not, 1.4 is also a big content drop for every player, and it has some really cool features, one of which we teased already. It's the fishing update, so you will now be able to fish. But there's also a lot of content changes, a lot of balance changes especially, and about those we'll talk a bit more later on. And just to be clear from the very beginning, the introduction of a new species into the game mixes up a lot of the balance of the game. So tomorrow's changelog will be massive. And all the changes to the balance will be for every player, regardless of if you own the DLC or not. And that's because, the game is so complicated, interconnected, synergizes so much in different areas that it's just not practical to keep like two versions of the game with different balance issues and different like stats. So it's one version of the balance for everyone. Just when you own the DLC, you just get access to the frogs and to the new biome. So yeah, well, should we start with the frogs? I think.
Yep. Go on.
And show you the new playable species.
Okay, let's move on to the game. By the way, due to the technical issues, we didn't welcome you properly to the stream. So thank you everyone who joined us for the first time. We hope you're gonna have a great time. And who's watching us for the second or fourth or 10th time, thank you for sticking with us. It means a lot, and thank you all for your support.
Yeah, thank you all, and sorry for not
If you have any questions during the stream, please type them in the chat. If they are related to what's happening on the screen at the moment, we'll do our best to answer them right away. And the rest of the questions we'll leave for the Q&A section, which will happen near the end of the stream.
Yeah. So we are right now in the new biome, in the coastal grove. And as you might notice, you are on the very edge of the map. It's not really the edge of the map, it's just there are different maps, so to speak, but you start near the water, and this is tied to the main mechanic of this biome, which is the strider port. And here you have the strider and its rider. Nice that it rhymes. And so let's talk about the biome first. I thought you will talk about the frogs, but let's start with the biome. So in this biome, you have a limited amount of blueprint choices for reputation. As you can see on the bar below, it's a bit a lower number of blue marks than on a normal game. But helpful in your struggles here will be the Strider report, where you can send out expeditions. So the lore here is that this is a very secluded area with limited contact with the Citadel, and a lot of envoys who traveled here, a lot of viceroys who have like visited this area, they just got lost along the way. They got shipwrecked. It's also an area that was underwater for a long time, so now that it has emerged, it's a harsh environment to, it doesn't follow the same rules, so to speak. So on design-wise, to give the lore some design, to give it some context, we've tried to find an area of the game where we still didn't bend the rules somehow, where it would be interesting to do something unique and change up your gameplay. And we quickly arrived at the decision that we not very often do we do something with blueprints. Of course, we changed the number of blueprints you can gain and different difficulty modifiers and so on, but we never really changed the rules of that. You can buy blueprints, you can find ruins and so on, but we decided in this biome we want to shake things up. So this is why the Strider port is here. So here I can select my expedition. So here I have to give my Strider some provisions. The crew also has something to eat, and here's the progress bar, of course, but here is the most important thing. I select which category of blueprint I want to receive. For example, I want to receive food production blueprints, and I want to, and here's also an additional reward, which is every time the Strider goes out and finds something, will also bring back some treasure, basically. I can, of course, also increase and invest more resources to make this expedition a bit more, let's say, to increase my chance of finding additional loot. But let's just keep it simple. I don't have the resources here, but thankfully to my rescue comes this biome, which we can now go into its resource distribution. So you have kelpwood trees here, which give you algae, which is a new resource, and vegetables. So I can use algae to feed the Strider to send them an expedition. But also you can notice here is the new resource fish, and here I don't think we have new resources. No. This biome is also very heavily focused on fishing. That's why algae are here. That's why there's fish requirements here. It's also a special effect for this biome, which is the Strider port. No, it's not that. It's the gift of the depth. So we'll talk about this more when we are in fishing, but when we talk about fishing. But it's basically, it allows you to sacrifice algae for hostility reduction in this biome. So all of the mechanics here are tied to fishing, are tied to the blueprint acquisition methods, and so on. I will now cheat a bit and just give me some resources so I can send out an expedition. So let's choose algae, let's choose berries, whatever. I want a food blueprint. I have to assign dock workers who will transport the goods, and let's start the expedition. And they will now transport the goods. And yeah, this strider is off in search of blueprints for me. Yeah, it's gonna take 2 minutes for that. Every other expedition is a blueprint expedition. There's also just treasure expeditions, so it alternates between those two. And this one is a blueprint expedition right now. And
you can get up to 8 blueprints that way.
Yeah.
So it's not unlimited.
And the rest is basically perks, resources. You'll see right now what, and in a second, what the strider brings back. And he'll just go around the map. You can follow his path. He'll search around here and here, and the further you go along with these expeditions, the longer it will take, and the more you invest, the longer they will take. So, the first expedition is pretty short, then it's going to be longer and longer.
And the more you invest, the higher the chances of getting some extra or higher tier blueprints.
Exactly.
Not blueprints, perks.
Perks, yeah. One other thing is that, as I mentioned before, there's a limited number of blueprints right now from the reputation bonuses. It's not that big of a change, but there's this is a smaller amount of them basically. So I think we took away 5 blueprint choices from prestige difficulties, but all in all, thanks to this strider report, you can get 8. So it's basically a bonus of 3 more than you would get usually, but it's an investment, a time investment, a resource investment, an RNG investment, so to speak. So it's gonna be interesting to see how you play around with this new biome and what you come up with in terms of feedback, for example, because we're always waiting for that as well. So while the strider is on its way and looking for, it's going back, for blueprints, let's talk a bit more about frogs, because that's, I think, the most interesting part of this stream. As you can see, those mighty, beautiful frog people here running around. I will begin with some design stuff, and then we can move on to lore, flavor, and so on. So when designing a new species, I have autos pause enabled. When designing a new species for the game, we were thinking about not exactly how to make them the most powerful, the most cool species, because that's not the point. We want to find a good niche for them in the game. So we wanted to find an area where they could fit, where they could have their unique playstyle, where they can shake things up. And we decided on a characteristic that they are more support focused, that they are builders, architects, masons. They thrive in cities where there's a lot of building happening, where you can where there is a lot of building materials being produced, and so on and so on. Their unique starting ability, which you will unlock, I think, on level 15 in the Smoldering City, is locating ruins. So, humans locate fertile soil when you first enter a settlement, and the frogs, they locate a ruin on the closest in the closest glade. So, for example, here I know I don't have to pick a herbalist camp because I will get one from this small glade. So why not go and explore that and make use of their special ability here. The storm story. The other thing is that so to tie into this support role, into this constructor's role, into this leader role in your settlement, they also have a unique new firekeeper ability, which is increasing the speed at which I think we can move the camera a little to the right so people can see. Is increasing the arrival speed of newcomers by 50%. So when you have, frog firekeeper assigned, your newcomers will just arrive quicker, which is a good bonus for the beginning of the settlement, or if you want to expand quickly. I think that will come in useful. Now, the other thing that sets aside a species in the game is also their needs. As you can see here, this is a bit hard to read, but they don't have a shelter need, so a need for basic housing. That's why when designing this species, we wanted to create also, not only give them like strengths, but also find a unique drawback to them, which is not really a drawback, but also something that will change how you play the game from the beginning. So they don't have a shelter need, they can't live in shelters. That's why I built the frog houses for them at the start, because that's the only thing they'll accept. But also to make things a bit easier, because there's RNG involved, there's Queen's Hand trial and so on, where the houses are very important on higher difficulties. You will unlock essential frog houses from the very start when you unlock frogs. And there's like this, the need makeup, the exact need makeup I think we'll leave for tomorrow. You can read it in the changelog. They have 3 luxury needs, the service needs, some food needs, and they have this new need, which we'll talk about a bit later, which is boots. So a new clothing item, and they will require, and we have to pause. So, but one additional thing that, all of this combined creates some sort of unique species, let's say. So they have their ability, they have their firekeeper passive, and so on. But there's also one thing that there's specializations, of course, but there's also still like the attributes, but something was missing for us. So we decided to give them even more character and even more like uniqueness or variety to the gameplay by focusing them heavily around housing upgrades. So you might notice that in normal buildings, in normal housing buildings for different species, there are only 2 levels of upgrades, and 3 out of 4 upgrades are repeatable between species. The last one is a special one depending on the species that lives in this house. Frogs have only one like repeatable upgrade for like in every other species. It's the extra room update, which just gives to you 1 more villager that can live in this house. But all the other upgrades are unique ones, and they change the rules a bit. They give you some bonuses. So for example here, the first level, you can have a rainwater storage, which will increase your global storage for every kind of rainwater, or you can just increase the number of villagers that will live in this house. So the second level, for example, is the drafting table, which will make it easier to produce building materials depending on how many villagers live in this house. Or you can just increase the resolve by 2 for every villager living in this house. So there's a lot of other effects happening here. Again, I will leave this for you to explore and to read about in the changelog. But that is also something that separates the frogs from other species, that allows you to maybe craft a different build while playing with them.
But are you going to leave our viewers without showing the visual upgrades?
The visuals, okay.
Come on, man.
Okay. So let's focus on the house. You can see a big pool up there because lore-wise, frogs love water, and that's one of the reasons why we gave them the rainwater specialization, but more on that in a second. So I'm upgrading that. Something's happening here. Okay, let's choose the drafting table. I'm gonna create more building materials. Okay, now it's the fountain happening here. Maybe we can choose the atrium. Oh, some small things happened here. And the workbench. And that is the fully upgraded frog house with all the cool flair around it. Yeah, it looks a bit more fancy than the regular one. Yeah, I spoke a bit about the specializations, so let's move on to that right now. You may notice that they have the masonry specialization, which is a new specialization. They just excel at producing bricks, of everything that produces stone. So for example, in the stonecutter's camp, they will get a bonus. I don't have stone, I think, right now. So they have an increased chance of producing double the yields when working in a stonecutter's camp, in a brickyard, in a kiln, I think. So it's gonna be a nice bonus to just use and excel at producing, for example, coal in the kiln and bricks and so on. But the other thing is, you might notice that they have rainwater. Previously, foxes had this specialization. We decided on changing that. We decided that frogs thematically fit rainwater better, and we gave them this comfort specialization, so when they work in buildings that have a rainwater tag, they will just feel better there and get a resolve bonus. And foxes got a new specialization, which is blight rot. That also fits their lore, because foxes live in some symbiosis with the blight rot. So now when foxes work in a building that is infested by a blight rot cyst, they will get a bonus to resolve. I'm very interested in how people will use it, how builds will look after this update. It's gonna be interesting to see some more corruption-focused builds and so on. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Okay, I think in the meantime the Strider has returned. So let's look at what we have here. Okay, we got a greenhouse. Not the best one for my situation here. But also we got an uncommon sunken chest, so also not the biggest rarity, because sunken chests can have different rarities, so as do like cornerstones, uncommon, rare, epic and legendary and so on. So let's claim the rewards. And from the uncommon sunken chest we got some pottery, some barrels, oh, and a perk, tea infuser. Yeah, I'll take that. And you can see the next expedition is ready to set up. Now it doesn't have a blueprint, it only has our treasure chest, so we can, for example, try and increase the chances here for a better one. It's gonna cost us a bit more. Maybe we use fish, maybe we use this one. And yeah, let's see. Oh, auto pause because seasons changed. And yeah, let them work.
We have some questions regarding a frog's special ability.
Oh yeah, of
so
course.
Inviting newcomers 50% faster.
Yeah.
The question is it the final number? Because it feels powerful.
Yeah, it is for now. For now, it's the final number for now. I mean, as with every change in the game, once you have once you try it and you feel that it is too powerful, you can give us your feedback, and we will of course adjust if it's actually too powerful. We found that during our playtesting, it was powerful enough. It felt powerful. It wasn't game breaking at any point, for us at least. And it is a good bonus for the frogs. But if you feel during your own experience with the game that it is too powerful, just let us know and we'll reevaluate that. But for now, yeah, this is the value that is going to be in the build tomorrow when the DLC released.
And this is the kind of feedback our team loves most. When you let us know that something feels too powerful, you're guaranteed it will be nerfed.
Oh yeah, I was gonna nerf. No, I mean, I'd rather have it feel more powerful right now, so you can play around with it, and just because if it was too weak, then nobody would care about it. If it feels powerful right now, that's great. You'll just test the ability and see if it's really that powerful or too powerful, and we can go from there. There's gonna be some patches still after that, so no worries. There will be a lot of iteration in the future as well.
Yeah. And by the way, maybe it's time to thank our alpha playtesters, because before the DLC, we also invited a small group of players to help us playtest the new content. Thank you very much, everyone, for being there, sharing your feedback, your thoughts, reports, all kinds of stuff. It helped us a lot. It means a lot to us. So thank you very much for helping us. And this certainly helped make the overall balance feel much better than it was at the very beginning.
That's true. I mean, before we gone into alpha with the frog build and the patch 1.4, the game was in a much worse state, and the alpha helped us. The alpha testers helped us understand what is fun, what isn't fun about the game, and what is something we should focus on with this DLC. So thank you very much. It was very, very helpful, and we had a very good time reading through the feedback.
Yeah, and speaking of feedback, there was also a question: what's the best place to leave feedback? Basically, wherever you can, wherever you want, but so on our social media, in emails, but preferably you can join our Discord. It's in the main menu of the game. At the very bottom, there's a link to our Discord. We have a feedback channel there. We have a bug reports channel. We also have in-game reporter. So when you go to main menu or press F11, you can open the reporter and you can share your feedback with us. When you share feedback via in-game reporter, we are unable to reach back to you. So we prefer Discord or Steam discussions.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think that's it for frogs right now. I probably forgot something, but in the course of this live stream, we'll probably tell you more about them.
Yeah.
We
We
will-
also don't need to go into every tiny
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
We stumbled across a little problem recently because it turned out that the changelog with developer nodes turned out to be too big for Steam to handle. Steam has a character limit of 32,000 characters, and our changelog combined with developer nodes had around 70,000. So we had to split the changelog on Steam into 3 parts. It's not only changelog. We also like to write a lot. Aaron likes to write a lot. So there will be a hefty portion of developer nodes. So our ideas, thoughts about the design, the design behind the changes. We recommend you reading it, but it's a long one.
Yeah, and just like for everyone who wasn't, for example, here when we did previous patches, just to let you know that the changelog lists every change in the game that happened because of the patch, so it's very detailed. But in the developer note, we only explain some decisions, so you get a bigger picture of why we did something, why we changed something, and so on. So it's the developer note isn't really the full story. It's only to let you know that what the thought process was behind some decisions. Okay, so we will leave the frogs alone for now and focus a bit more on the next big thing that's happening. So it's the fishing.
Yeah, and let's make a distinction here. Tomorrow, September 26th, we're gonna release Fishing Update 1.4 and Keepers of the Stone DLC.
Exactly.
Fishing Update is free for everyone, and DLC is paid. And there were a lot of questions about the price. We cannot reveal the price just yet. It will be known tomorrow on the release, and I will let you know why a little bit later, because this is some clever thinking from Hooded Horse. They are responsible for the price, and there's a very good reason why the price isn't set yet. It was the same for every release, including Manor Lords and stuff. I'm not gonna bore you right now. I know this question will come up during Q&A. Anyway.
Okay, so and just to also add to that, the content in 1.4, as we said, it's for everyone. Just the biome and the species are DLC exclusive, plus some content around those things. So with fishing, it works very similarly to how gathering works. But when designing it, we wanted to find some different mechanics that we haven't yet explored in terms of resource acquisition. So as you can see, I have a fishing camp. It's called a fishing hut, but it works like a camp. You have a small version, you have a big version. You have to find a pond in glades. There are 3 types of ponds. There is the thunderfish pond, which is just a new resource fish, and it has a chance of dropping scales as well. There is an algae pond. I'm not sure about the name right now. I think it's just algae. And there is a scales pond, basically. They have different additional resources you can gather, and you can use those resources in different ways. I will get into that in a second, because there are some interesting combos happening here. But the differentiating factor for fishing, for example, when compared to gathering, is that they don't take the resources one by one into the fishing camp and and just get them back to the warehouse. They stay at the pond and collect the resources here in the nets. So how this works is that we wanted fishing to be a time and resource investment to a degree. So the fishing pond, the small one, has a lot of charges, 60, but you have to wait for them. You have to like dedicate some manpower here, even some resources, which we'll get into in a second. But it's not as easy as just collecting one by one berries, or it's something between farming, which is an investment that yields a profit at the end of the year, and between, but farming is an infinite, and between gathering, which is finite, but also is very ad hoc. It's very fast. It gives you resources right away. So it's something in between, and we found that it's pretty interesting how it changes the gameplay, because you think about the pond right now. Okay, do I need all of it? Do I need the resources right now? And as you can see, I can retrieve the net sooner. This will deplete the entire pond. So it's a decision between, do I want to wait and get all the charges, and here I even got more because I have some critical happening here, or do I just deplete it sooner and get what I have, and I need it right now for an event, an order, whatever. The other thing why this is producing more than charges are indicating is that the fishing hut is using ground bait, which is also a new mechanic. So using packs of crops, you can produce ground bait in the fishing hut directly. So the fishers just take it from the main warehouse, they go to the fishing hut and they make ground bait. Here is one pack of crops is 5 ground bait. And you can choose how they operate with that. So if they shouldn't use ground bait, if they should use it when it's available, or they fish only if it's available, if packs of crops are available. And using ground bait will basically double the yields from fishing. So it's the number of fish here is increasing very, very fast. So this is a resource investment you can get into to retrieve even more resources from the fishing pond. Also, at the same time, you might be asking, why are we using packs of crops in this scenario? Now, it's because almost all packs in the game have like a different role, besides like being used for or like here for orders. That's because we always wanted to find an additional sync, an additional like role and niche for most of the packs in the game. We found one for trading packs. They are very high priced. They can be sold for a very high price. Luxury packs as well. Building packs are used a lot in upgrading buildings. We also have, I think, provisions. Yeah, provision packs which can be used for trade routes. But packs of crops were never really useful in any way. So now we found a small niche for them, which is the ground bait. You can use it to basically increase your yields from fishing. And that's basically it to fishing. It's a pretty straightforward mechanic. We didn't want to make it too complicated because it's going to be one of the basic actions you take as a player in the game, like gathering or cutting down trees. But it's, I think, as enough variety in it that you will find it a bit refreshing when playing with the new patch. Now let's move on to the recipes, because that's also an interesting fact about the new fishing. We have new resources. Oh, and why isn't it working? Oh, because I'm stupid. So we have scales, for example, and here you can see an ingredient view of scales and what they can be used for. We tried to weave in the new resources into most or some existing recipes so that they will fit in, that you will have uses for them, that they will feel rewarding to have. So for example, scales can be used to produce boots, which is just interchangeable resource for example, leather. You can also make dye from scales. So it can be useful for a different good I'll be describing later on. You can make, using scales, you can make water skins, which are no longer just made from leather. And there is also one interesting fact, that you can use scales to make copper from. So they'll also tie into the metal branches of the game. So and incest as well. So it'll change things up a bit. And with most of the new resources, so we have scales, we have fish. There's a lot of things that you can use them for. Okay, in terms of fish, I forgot. It's mostly a food item, but for example, oil, for example, paste is the new food item. We will talk about in a sec. This is mostly for food. And now algae, which is interesting because you can use it to produce fabric. It can be used in the ranch to basically make leather, but that's another thing. It can be used to produce crystallized dew, or it can be burned instead of wood for coal, or ground down to become flour. So a lot of the balance will be shaken up by this update, even without owning the new DLC. You will just have fishing tie into a lot of the existing branches and hopefully change your playstyle a bit. The last thing
One quick question from the chat.
Yeah.
Are lakes, ponds renewable? They are not.
No, they are not renewable. They once they're depleted, they are gone like any other node. One also thing, when we are at the topic of new resources, we can talk about some others. So for example, you've seen boots already, and this is an interesting little topic. Oh, okay. I can't use the recipe panel, I think, today. It's weird. So boots are another, a new type of need that is of the category clothing. Now, you might know from previous versions that we only had one need of that type previously. It was coats. It was a weird need because it was the only higher need that was satisfied directly at the hearth. Only a few species had it. It was the only category that was only had one need, basically. It was a small category. It was the only category that didn't have, for example, seasonal effects or, forest mysteries tied into them, because not every species had them, so it was really limiting in terms of design to find some effects for that. So now we decided to shake things up and give every single species at least one need that is tied to clothing. So for example, beavers have their coats, frogs have their boots, and for example, harpies, being very talented tailors, have now both clothing needs that they need. So thanks to this change, we can be more free in designing new forest mysteries, for example. We can now have, for example, like this one. Bitter Rain is a new forest mystery, which requires clothing to prevent a negative effect. And this is now possible because every species has a clothing need, at least one. And there's also more possibilities for new orders, for example, satisfying clothing needs and so on. Harpies also, their special starting ability will feel different now because they give you coats, and you might have a town which is wholly reliant on coats, but you might also have a town which doesn't use coats too much. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The other thing that is new is also paste, which is a food item, which is made primarily from dye and from some additional ingredients. This is also something new we wanted to try out. We don't have anything that uses dye for food. We have flour-based foods, we have container-based foods, we have complex foods made out of two food items like the skewers. We have porridge, which is made from rainwater plus food, but we never had this weird crafting item combined with food that makes paste. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It also is dye is used in some new recipes, and also new items can be used to produce dye. For example, previously I showed you scales can be used for that. So with a good supply of fishing, you can probably make paste very easily. So this is also something new. For example, frogs have this need. And other than that, I don't think, and we'll have to look at my change. We don't think we have more new items in the game. No. So these are the biggest new additions, the biggest new features, biggest new systems actually. That'll change how you play the game and be introduced in this new update. Oh, I can send another expedition. Let's do that. why not? And I want something nice from this chest. Let's try. So yeah, while I look at my big list of changes, you can look at some questions,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah. By the way, maybe let's share some information about the timing of the update and the settlement saves. Or, yeah. By the way, did we talk about needs and their passive effects?
No, that's also
And that's a big one.
That's a big one. I wanted to talk about it more when we get into balance, but yeah, we can talk about this right now. So a new big change in terms of systems and needs and so on is the addition of passive effects to needs. So as you can see here right now, for example, biscuits. This need is satisfied at the hearth. It requires biscuits, and satisfying this need increases the chance of producing double yields. So now if we look at, for example, some villagers who have, let's say this Flavius Mossback, a builder, has satisfied his full belly 3 times, so he has 3 food needs, complex food needs, and he gets plus 5% higher chance of producing double yields for every single food need consumed. So he has now a plus 15% higher chance for that. So, and his fulfilled need for boots has given him an increased movement speed by 15%. So you can see that we added some special passive effects to every need outside from housing in the game. So, and the reason for this is that there are a few reasons. One of them is that we felt that using consumable items and consuming different resources felt a bit bad in some cases when you didn't really generate reputation from them. So, you had a lot of coats and food and so on, but you didn't really benefit from them because you maxed out your reputation gain from a species. Right now, we want this need satisfying to feel satisfying, basically. So to always have a role, to even if you don't generate reputation points, at least you boost your economy, you boost your production potential, and the village just starts bustling. It starts to become like faster and more efficient. The other thing is that thanks to this change, I think the game stopped feeling a bit chaotic at the end. Sometimes when you play a long and hard game of Against the Storm, at the end when you're leaving the settlement, it feels like everything's burning, everything's falling apart. But you, the brave viceroy, are just leaving, like, because you have the reputation points collected, and you're like, okay, bye. But right now it feels more stable at the end because of those bonuses, because you have those production chains which fuel themselves like in a positive feedback loop. And at the same time, there's also another thing we wanted to address a bit. It doesn't fix it, but it at least is a small change that might influence it. So there is something like the starvation meta happening in the games for some players, where they basically forbid every single need, wait for the food to stockpile, and just open it up, like allow villagers to eat something at one point, so it generates a lot of reputation at the same time. And it's one of the strategies, but it should stay as one of the strategies and not the dominant one. So we want to address that, and I think a good first small step into the right direction is giving the bonuses to the food and to service needs, especially because they have a higher increase in double yield chance, so that you don't always want to like stockpile the goods and wait. You might sometimes want to increase your productivity by allowing the consumption of those needs sooner, and that might also change things up a bit. So food increases double yield chance, service needs increase double yield chance, and boots increase speed, and coats increase bonus. They give you bonus resolve during the storm. So beavers with the coats needs satisfied will have an easier time surviving the storm, and that also adds a more like varied makeup to the game, because now different races have different bonuses because they have different needs. So now they start to feel even more different. So that's I think a good thing, and that will help for the game's longevity and for the game's like balance health, so to speak. So yeah, also with the addition of frogs, there's also some new cornerstones happening. We might even find one here. No, we didn't. No, this is not the one we're looking for. Oh, no new cornerstone. Oh, this is the new one, for example. Exactly. So there are a few new cornerstones which synergize with the new species a bit. For example, City of Wonders. Members of the frog clan flock to your settlement and gain 1 frog villager for every 2 house upgrades. So this just rewards you for upgrading homes, and you know, it's a positive feedback loop again, because you upgrade houses, you have more frogs, they increase the for example bonuses you get from a different perk, which is also one of the new ones, and that so on and so on. So this playstyle might result in a very active, very big city in the end. There's also new orders for frogs. So for example here, I have at least 6 frogs for 30 seconds. So it's like the standard order for every species in the game. So we added this one as well. There's some new Citadel upgrades. No, I can't. Maybe I leave the game and show you them right now. And we talk a bit about how upgrades work with the DLC. So because we have a new species, as you know, all species have some unlockables in the Citadel. So for example, here you can see Harpy, house upgrades for Harpies is in the Vanguard Spire level 11. So the same thing is also true for frogs. So that's why we added some new upgrades here. For example, here, Brass Forge level 10 allows you to use house upgrades. And I think Brass Forge level 8 unlocks the special ability for frogs. Now, how does this work if you play on 1.4 and you don't have the DLC? That's just gonna be like, you're just gonna be skipping this update. Basically upgrade. You have, for example, Brass Forge level 7. You don't own the DLC, so you can't buy this one, but you can buy this one, and you can just move forward with your upgrades. And once you, for example, get the DLC, let's say you're waiting for a bigger discount, you can just buy it later on, and you will just buy this upgrade then, and you can play as normal. There is also, you might notice here that there's more upgrades overall. That's because we increased the level cap from 18 to 20. We also added some new upgrades aside from just the frogs. For example, here, this upgrade, more villagers. It gives you 1 more villager at the start of your settlement, so it gets you rolling faster. We also have, for example, this upgrade here, which is just the embarkation bonus. You can choose the fishing hut at the start of your settlement if you really want it at the beginning. For example, when going into the new biome, and you know that there's a lot of fishing happening there. There's also...
We also increased level cap to level 20.
Yeah, that's the... I think I said that. And there's also some new frog deeds, as with a lot of different species. So you can, for example, here upgrade 12 frog houses to the maximum level in 1 game. There's, as you can see, some new decorations here as well with the new deeds. There's some fun new deeds like this one, which is also an achievement, so it's gonna be fun. And I think that's most of the things worth talking about. Oh, there's new buildings, of course, with the new DLC.
In the meantime, you mentioned there's the one particular deed is also a Steam achievement or other platform achievement. With this DLC, we are also adding new achievements. We had a hard time deciding whether we should add new achievements with a DLC, but we let you decide on Steam and on Discord. There was a community vote poll, and the majority of you decided that you would like to get new achievements. So they are going to be available as well.
Yeah, there's going to be some new achievements. There's also there are also some new deeds that are not achievements, that are not directly tied to the DLC, but yeah, they just give you a bit more XP, for example, because the level cap is increased. But like all of this is going to be listed tomorrow. So here, for example, is one of the new buildings, the cannery, which produces paste, wine, biscuits. And you might notice that we added some special icons to the encyclopedia, which show you which buildings are locked behind species. So for those of you who don't really know about this feature, because that's something that we will not really talk openly about. Not because we don't want to hide it, but because it's just some quirk of the drafting system of the game. So when you, for example, play with just lizards, humans, and beavers, you won't ever get cannery because it's locked behind frogs, and that's because we want to limit the pool of possible choices. Not because we want to make the game boring and like you make the same choices all the time. More because we already have a pretty big pool of buildings in the game, and some of you rightly noticed and asked us about that before we even announced the DLC that okay, you're gonna add new buildings. What are you going to do with the blueprint bloat? So with this update, we increased the number of buildings that every species locks. So for example, even with the new additions to the game, with the new buildings in this update, in the end, your options will be similar to 1.3, or even you will get a few fewer, like 1 or 2 fewer buildings in the pool because of those locking mechanisms, so to speak. And it's all because we want to, give you choices that matter for your game, that will be useful and not completely useless. We still want to give you choices that are optimal, suboptimal, depending on your situation. We are not deleting buildings because they are weak and not meta. They are supposed to be there because if everything is good, then nothing is good. There's supposed to be worse and better choices. There's situational choices. We're fine with that. But there are also some buildings that just don't fit the game if a given species isn't there. And that should help the blueprint bloat a bit. And the same thing you can see in the species tab. Here we list the buildings that are locked behind, for example, humans. So without humans in your settlement, you won't get human house. Yeah, duh. You won't get the monastery, you won't get the brick oven, and you won't get the brewery. So with every species is the same. Every species basically has 4 buildings that are locked.
Yeah, while we're on the world map, let's show which new tiles are the coastal grove.
Yeah, so here's the coastal grove.
They are slightly different from royal woodlands.
Yeah, it looks slightly different.
Yep. There was a question, are there any new world events coming with this update?
Unfortunately, not with this update.
Yep.
We are still thinking about world events. They are fun, but with this update, unfortunately, no new world events. But while we are on the world map and we talked about the encyclopedia, let's dig into 2 topics. One of them is we changed how the map is generated a bit, because previously Royal Woodlands was just dominating the map to a very big extent. So we lowered that, and now you should see a bit more variety in biomes here. So maybe your next journey to a seal will be a bit more varied, let's say. And the other thing is encyclopedia. You might notice that aside from the marking of buildings which are locked behind species, we also added a new tab here, events. This is also one of the bigger changes with this update.
It was very often requested.
Yeah, it was a very requested feature to list the events in the encyclopedia. Now, you might notice that I have all of them undiscovered, and that's because we wanted, even with adding this feature, we wanted to not spoil everything for everyone right away, and we wanted to give a small scavenger hunt. So a given event unlocks in the encyclopedia only once you complete it, at least once. So in order to see it, for example, I will have to go into the game, and let's say I'm gonna quickly solve an event. In the meantime, Luke, you can also give him some questions.
Yes, there were questions about ponds and the Strider port. So yes, ponds are now available on every map. I think you can find them on every map. There are 3 types of ponds. So you cannot find all the types on all the biomes, but every biome now has a pond.
Yes.
Some pond available. We already talked about 3 different types of ponds, I believe. You can get different resources from those ponds. They are not DLC exclusive, but the Strider port is only available on the coastal grove. So you don't need to build it. When you embark to coastal grove, it's already there. You cannot build a second port. It's only there. We know that many of you would like to make would like us to make the edge of the map more interactable, but for us the edge of the map is a blocker, like the end of the map. In other games this would be, I don't know, mountains or a void which you cannot access, and in Against the Storm it's the sea, the waters around the map are the blockers. So in the foreseeable future we don't really plan to do anything about it. It will remain a blocker, but on coastal growth you start on the edge of the map, you get the Strider port, and you can start an expedition there.
Yeah, exactly. If we wanted to find some role for the edge of the map, but it isn't really like anything useful or fun that could happen here. If it's just a renewable source for goods, then it's not really that. We thought about it a lot, and we came to the conclusion that just cutting through the forest and getting here isn't like a design choice as a player that would be fun, or at least in many games, maybe in the first or second game you play, but then it might become a bit monotonous. But yeah, that's just our reasoning for that. But okay, I finished 2 events, so I can go into the wiki, and here you can see I have the large encampment unlocked. I can change the difficulty here because the requirements change depending on the difficulty of the game. It only goes up to Viceroy because Prestige uses Viceroy settings for event difficulty. So here I can see which resources are needed for what choice. And here down below I can see what is possible to, like, what rewards are possible depending on that choice. Same thing with this dangerous event. Here's the description, the specialization bonus, the threats that will happen in this amount of time, and depending on the, of course, difficulty. And here, for example, I have this one. Here is the working effect. Here's the resource requirements, and the possible rewards for both choices. So it should help you, once you discover an event, it should help you remember, okay, what is this event about? Or if you have, for example, Mist Piercers, you might see an event hidden somewhere here, you know its name, but you don't really remember how it worked. So that might help you on your second playthrough, for example, to see those events. Oh,
yeah, but even with Mist Piercers, you first need to discover the event
at least once. The only the only exception here is the Queen's Hand trial, because there you probably already know the game very well if you play Queen's Hand trial. So we unlock the entire event wiki, like from the first game you play on Queen's Hand trial. So yeah, I'm looking at my list here, and there's
maybe
some
we can move on to marshlands. There are 2 new resource nodes on marshlands.
Yes, then we can show. So with that we can move on to basically a very big topic, which is balance.
Oh man, I don't know if we have that much
time.
But
before we go there, I want to show you one thing.
Yeah.
We have a new menu if you have DLC, and you can change it back to the other one if you like the other one better. But at the same time, it's also 14 new music tracks in the DLC.
Yeah, we don't. So we didn't speak about it, but that's a also very big part of the DLC. We know that many of you like music from Against the Storm, and we are happy to let you know that Mikołaj prepared 14 new tracks for the DLC. We will add them to the supporter pack in all the formats, so MP3, WAV, and other. We will also release it on major streaming platforms, so you can. And
while we're on the topic of the supporter pack, there's also going to be some new assets there. I think there's the new key art there as well.
Yeah, new wallpaper and frog portrait.
Okay, so we are on the marshlands. So with the additions of the new resources, the new systems, and so on, a lot of the systems in the game, the existing ones, had to change. And that's because, we had to make room for the new systems, the new changes, but also we wanted to make sure that, with or without the DLC, that the game is still fun. So that's why there are some hefty changes here and there. For example, all biomes have now, as Luke said, some new resources. For example, a pond or two, for example, in the in the marshlands you can find an algae pond. But with all the changes, I think the marshlands changed the most because there were a few issues with marshlands. Marshlands, yeah, that's the correct name. I'm having having a brain fart right now.
Yeah, because was it named differently back in the day?
No.
It was Scarlet Orchard. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was Scarlet Orchard. But with this, why am I doing this? I can just use the debug tools. So yeah, there are some issues with marshlands, especially when we increased the amount of nodes in most biomes. Most biomes were fine, but marshlands started to feel very weird. You know, even before the updates, there was a lot of situations in the marshlands where you had too little, for example, fiber nodes, so you couldn't make fabric, and that's fine because you know it's cool. The biome is different than others, so that's a nice touch. But it was too much, so we decided to give it, for example, a new stone node. So now you don't have normal stones here; you have overgrown stones, which give you an additional chance of, like, they drop additionally algae. They have 40% chance of dropping algae, the big ones, for example. We also changed, like, we deleted, I think, one node which was mostly meat node with leather, but we also added one additional node which is not tied to fishing, and I might not find it here, I'm afraid. No, I can. We added a leather node. So previously leather was only found in I think as a byproduct of different like nodes, like for example this one here produces leather. It wasn't really useful that much in the previous iterations of the game. It wasn't really that important. It could be used for water skins, it could be used for fabric and so on, but it wasn't never really a fully fledged resource. Now, with the addition of boots, for example, we thought that, okay, when you have boots, we want leather to have a very important role as a main ingredient for boots, and the other ingredient is scales from fish. So then we created a leather node. I can't find it right now, but maybe, who knows? Maybe not in this biome.
It is in this biome.
I might find it in Royal Woodlands, I think, as well. So there is now a dedicated leather node which you can use with the harvester camp. Am I misremembering that?
It's in Marshland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really having a brain fart right now. That's
yeah,
fine.
there's been a lot of work before the release. We thought we have everything ready few weeks ago, but as it always turns out, the last 20% is
the hardest. Yeah, it's and also I have some difficulties remembering because we've worked so long on this update that I don't really even remember exactly.
Here they are.
Yeah, how things change between the versions, because it's the main version for me is right now for 1.4. So here are some water strider molds. So you can, it's a leathery exoskeleton left behind by a juvenile water strider, the new beast from the new biome. And you can get leather from it. And leather was added to the harvester camp, which previously only had 2 recipes. Now it has as well leather. So leather became like a new resource, like a main resource. It's not so second place anymore like it was before. So as you can see, you can, for example, use it in place of fabric to produce coats. You make boots out of it. You can now use the leather for making training gear, for example. Here's the usual stuff. So it should be a bit more useful right now. It should be a bit more exciting as a resource. We hope that that's gonna find a place in your build and in the game as a fully fledged resource in the future. So yeah, I'm looking at my list again. Sorry for like looking down at the papers but there's so much stuff in this update. Okay, I talked about the new DLC specific cornerstones.
I think we were going to talk also about buildings. About the new buildings, the buildings that were visually changed because of the addition of the frogs.
Yeah, that's true.
So because as frogs are now part of Against the Storm's world, We also changed some of the buildings from the vanilla game to have the frog architecture. So even if you don't own the Keepers of the Stone DLC, you will see that some of the buildings are now using the frog architecture style.
Yeah, exactly. So not only Cannery, which is the one of the frog buildings, there's also Pantry, a new building also dedicated to frogs. For example, you might remember the Forum, which now I can't spell. You might remember the Forum, which was an old building, but now it's a frog-specific building. It looks differently right now. There's also some other buildings that not changed to a frog look. So, for example, Clay Pit now looks, because it's tied to like stone and clay and so on, it changed its look to a bit more frog-inspired. We also have, for example, the Brickyard, which also looks more froggish. But there are also some other things which have new models. For example, the Scribe was previously a building that was, I think, not really tied to beavers. It was a universal building, but it looked like a harpy building. We changed it and now it's a beaver building. It looks differently. It's locked behind beavers. We changed the Apothecary, I think. Yeah, it's now this one. So there's a lot of things happening. And of course, with this, these are not only like visual changes. There's a lot of changes in terms of balance. A lot of these buildings have different, not different recipes, but we switched them around, for example. We took away a recipe from here or there. We added it to a different building. For example, here's the new building, Cobbler, because it's the only building that produces booze at the 3-star rating. It also is like a new one. It's available to everyone. It's
so, for example, Forum is now locked behind frogs, so you won't be seeing it in your regular games without the DLC, but we also added a Cobbler, a new building, in update 1.4.
Exactly. So, and all of those buildings, they have a bit of a different, recipe layout. Like Harvester Camp got leather, and some of the service buildings also got changed a bit. They lost one of them. I think lost one of their effects. I don't remember exactly which one it was right now. Sorry about that. But we also changed around this. For I think Clan Hall, it was changed. So you may notice that Clan Hall right now, it's still a Blizzard locked building, but it only has one need, it's brawling. So we added a new effect to it. So it now is weaker because it has just one recipe, but it's stronger because it has 2 effects right now. And so we did this shuffling around, this rebalancing all around the game. Everything I'm talking about right now, and even more is going to be described in tomorrow's changelog. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion in the community about that. So it's going to be interesting to see, how those changes land, basically. What else? Some new cornerstones as well. I talked about some new ones for the frogs, but there are also some general ones. For example, Book of Water. So every recipe using rainwater has 5% higher chance of producing double yields. For every fished out fish, scale, or algae, for 60 of them. So it's a recipe that works with fishing. It's a perk that works with fishing, but also ties into rainwater and so on. So it's gonna be fun to see the new synergies that pop up here.
2 quick questions from the chat. First, in the wiki, in-game species locked behind buildings show flawless buildings. Is this because we're playing on the experimental branch? Do flawless buildings usually appear in encyclopedia?
Wait a second. I think they still appear in the encyclopedia.
But it was in the regarding the species and buildings locked behind species.
I mean, you mean here in this one?
Yeah, that was the question.
Wait a second, I have to think.
No, they don't. They don't.
They don't appear here. I have to think about.
And they are not a reward from Strider port. That was the question.
Oh yeah, they're not rewarded from the Strider port. I'm not sure if they appear even on glades if you don't have the species. I might have to check that. But they're not here.
Okay, and the other question was, what exactly is paste? How is it food? Can we change it to something else? So paste is,
It's just like a form of. I mean, okay, I get what you mean by that. It's not as food sounding, or it's not an item that sounds as delicious as, I don't know, burger, fries, or whatever. But it was a difficult choice because we had to find something that is universal enough to be a food item, but as also have different ingredients in it. So you might notice that very few items in the game have like a specified name for a food. So we're not really focused on creating like items. We're more focused on creating groups of foods that have different recipes for them. So this was more stemmed from a design need. We wanted to create something that would fit in paste and some underutilized resources like fish, meat, eggs. And just the natural choice was, okay, so it's like paste, it's like hummus, it's like something that doesn't require chewing. It's something that you might imagine will be colored as a food item. It's too late to change it right now. It won't be changed until tomorrow.
yeah, but there are a lot of comments that it fits. It fits. It's like a red bean paste or peanut butter.
Yeah, it's peanut butter. It's. I mean, I get it, because when we designed it, we also were talking a lot about, okay, is it really like flavorful and so on. And in our minds, it just grew on us because it was something. Frogs don't have teeth, so they can like, maybe they like paste and porridge because it's soft, and it fits the dye. We also changed the name of pigment to dye because it was like food coloring right now. So yeah, it's. I would give it a try. I would see how people react to that. I think it fits. It's a good name for it, and from a lot of thinking about it we've arrived at this name, and we like it. But and it grew on us with time. So maybe it'll grow on you as well. If not, then yeah, we'll see about that. If there's overwhelming feedback that paste isn't something people like to eat, I love hummus. So we might change that. Yeah, so what else? I have my list here.
Yeah.
So we talked about some new cornerstones, orders as well. There are some new orders not tied to the new species. There's fishing orders. There's some orders that require you upgrading buildings. So, and some new forest mysteries. We showed one previously that uses, for example, the clothing. So that's some new aspects. We showed the new note. And yeah, that's it. I think there's some new things with the needs. They give passive bonuses. Oh, and there's some new ghosts in the Coastal Woodlands. There's some new interactions with Aunt Lori, and there's a lot of balance we can jump into right now. Or is there some question, Luke, you're reading?
There are some questions we can answer later.
Okay.
So yeah, feel free to move on.
Yeah. So let's move on. So, balance-wise, we talked about the balance a bit, but there's also some stuff happening like in the background because of the changes we described previously. So you might notice that, for example, the species have now different needs layouts, for example, and that they might eat some different stuff that you haven't seen in the previous version. For example, lizards now wear boots, so they have one less service needs, for example. Harpies wear boots and coats, so and they eat paste. So it's a lot of changes are happening here, as well as in the buildings, as we described, in the biomes, in the resource distribution. We also switched around some of the rainwater geyser spawns, because while playing, we noticed that there's a lot of drizzle water geysers happening on the map, even on like bigger glades. And sometimes the RNG was just so bad that you, for example, ended a game with 8 geysers with green water and you wanted like storm or you wanted clearance. So we evened that out a bit. We made it so that small glades have a higher chance of spawning the green water, so drizzle water. And for example, the forbidden ones have a higher chance right now, I think a lot higher chance of spawning the stormwater, for example. So that should be an additional incentive for you to venture into those areas. But we will see how it works once
more people get to play that. But there's some housekeeping here in terms of balance. I talked about the recipes where we had some new resources used, for example, in training gear. The skewer recipes also got a buff. So skewers right now has some more uses fewer ingredients for the same yield, so it should be a buff for it. One bigger change we did, which might be something the new, not the new players, but the more advanced players would like to know about, is the field kitchen. So we changed the recipe makeout of the field kitchen. It no longer produces porridge and jerky. It now has skewers, paste, biscuits, and pickled goods. So you might notice that these are very advanced recipes. They are not as simple, for example, as jerky. And why is that? Because during our testing on alpha, we played around with this building a lot. We wanted to give every single food item to players and make it, for example, a tier 0 recipe available to everyone. But during the course of testing, we found out that it's not really useful or fun, and that more interesting decision would be to change around the field kitchen so it produces the more advanced goods. And that's because we want to reward you for investing in them early on. So for example, with the field kitchen right now, I have an option to use dye, flour, for example pottery, and so it will free up some of my blueprint choices. Maybe I now, with this in mind, I would like to have something that creates dye, because I can set up this complicated production chain earlier and make use of it right away. I don't have to wait for a different building, for example, which produces flour and then biscuits, or which produces dye and then paste. So we wanted to avoid the field kitchen becoming just a small factory for jerky and porridge, where you just pump in rainwater, you increase every single one of those dials here, and you just pump out jerky and porridge, which was fun because it was a good way of having food early on. But we wanted to make it so that it allows you to go into those more specialized branches of production. And we hope that it's going to be a good change in terms of it might nerf some of the species that use jerky or porridge in the early game, but I think it will open up some cool interactions later on, and it might change your decision. For example, if you choose a blueprint which produces pottery and jerky, so for example with the smokehouse I can now have a tier 3 jerky, plus I get pottery, so I can maybe go into now this one here. So we will see how that plays out. This is one of the bigger changes as well. Bigger in terms of impact, I think, for the more advanced players who relied on the field kitchen more heavily. And other than that, well,
there's a lot. We don't need to go into every single one. But the chat was asking about. Sorry, forgot the question. Never mind. Sealed forest. Yeah, and changes to the seal quest.
Oh yeah, so this is one of the additional changes happening right now. Sealed forest. So there's a few things changing here. We switched up. I can't go there right now, but I'll do it. We switched up some of the requirements for the sealed forest because. Wait a second. Because we just had some ideas on how to make them more interesting. We found that some of the requirements later on were some of them were too easy in comparison to others in the same tier, for example. Some of them were too hard, too easy, so we wanted to change that a bit. There's also some... this is a difficult question, because I always felt that... sorry, I have to focus on writing this one. I always felt that some of the requirements for the sealed forest are samey or suboptimal. You don't choose them too often. But with this update, we decided to at least mix some things up. So one of the things I said was the balance pass on the existing. Jesus Christ, I can't type and talk at the same time. On the existing objectives, but we also wanted to add a different tier of difficulty above what is already possible. So right now, if you play Settler difficulty, nothing really changes for you. If you play above Settler and before Prestige 15, some of the objectives will be different. I'm not really sure which ones are the ones I'm talking about here. Not this one.
In the meantime, I'm gonna quickly answer one question from the chat. Since we were on the world map and we were going towards the seal, there was a question whether we are going to make a world map planner so you can plan your way towards the seal. At the moment, there are no plans for that. We know that would be probably cool, but at the moment, no plans. We know that some of you would like to have it, but not in this update and not in the foreseeable future at the moment, at least.
Yeah, I remember talking about it when the seal was introduced. I remember some of you asking about that. We thought about it, but always when you go back to it, there is some other things that just seem more important, that more people want, that we feel that benefits the game more. So it always gets pushed back into the backlog. And for now, that won't change in the near future, I think. So yeah, with the changes, there are a lot of numerical changes. For example, here you can see we increased the reputation requirement here from 5 to 6. And there's also some changes in the later stages where we, for example, wanted any clothing need fulfilled. And this is a new one. We added this because this was pretty easy and self-fulfilling. At the same time, we nerfed some other ones. This is one burn cyst every year, and then the last one, and that is done. So these are boring numerical changes, but the last tier at the very end of the seal progression, so the Prestige 15 and Prestige 20, they have some of these objectives even higher, even more difficult. So we added like some numerical changes there. So for those of you who have won the seal on Prestige 20, it might be a bit more difficult right now, but it wasn't really to increase the difficulty outright, but this was more because we wanted to even out the difficulty and increase the variety later on. So those of you who have played a lot might want to go back to the seal and see if something has changed. Maybe the difficulty is increased. Maybe there's something new that will happen to you there. Maybe something more interesting. It's still a topic we talk about, and we want to at least take a look again at it. But this is a difficult one. I've talked about the seals and in the previous live stream, and I don't think I want to bore you with more of the same here. I'm rambling right now because I don't really remember the exact changes that were happening in this seal objectives, because I changed that a long time ago. But there's in the changelog you will see the exact changes for all the seal objectives, and you will get to test them out tomorrow once the patch drops. Yeah. And one UX change you might not have noticed.
Not only one. There's a lot. I cannot wait until we get to the UX part.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go back into my list and look at... so other than that, there are some smaller balance changes as well. Moving houses doesn't cost anything right now anymore. The clay pit got a big buff, so it now can use rainwater in its when producing clay and so on. Let's see. So you can see here, it can now use rainwater, as well as it can now produce resin from rainwater. So that might also change things up a bit in terms of like maybe you can now use it to reliably produce resin, and then maybe turn it into crystallized dew, and maybe the game with foxes and frogs will synergize in a way that it never did before. Who knows? And I think there are some smaller changes as well, but we'll just leave them for now, and you can read all about them tomorrow.
Telhurin is pinging me that the biggest change was the change of objective in Sealed Forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the biggest one. We don't need to go back to it. It will be all available in the changelog tomorrow. Aaron is very... Yeah, the changelog is huge, and I believe we mentioned at least the majority of things that were changed, even though there was a lot.
Yeah.
UX?
Yeah, there's a lot. Oh, we can move on to UX.
Yeah, that's always the best part, because usually the majority of things that we introduce as UX UI changes are the ones that are inspired by the community feedback. So we know they are always very welcome. So how about we start with the warehouse limit? This was very it could be confusing, and we've seen it that many of you accidentally set the warehouse limit for a specific good, and then after a couple of games you couldn't produce something with this good because the warehouse limit was saved between games. You could change it in the main menu in options, but yeah, it's a pretty hidden option behind between all the other checkboxes in options. So right now, from tomorrow, from update 1.4, by default the warehouse limit won't be saved between games. So if you had your saved values and relied on them, please be aware that those values will be reset tomorrow, and you will have to set them again and then go to options and check the box with save warehouse limits. For those of you who don't know what warehouse limits are, warehouse reserve is, this is basically you setting a limit of goods that you don't want to use. Like, this is the minimum number of goods you need to have in your warehouse before your villagers can use them in production buildings. Those the warehouse reserve won't prevent your villagers from eating the food, completing orders, completing events.
Yeah, but it will like prevent your
Building.
workers from taking it to produce other stuff, because
Yep.
the other things you can control otherwise. You can prevent eating by consumption control. You can prevent like taking the goods for orders just by not completing orders and so on. So this is just for preventing workers taking those items.
Yeah.
If
And
it doesn't exceed the limit, of course.
And we also added an option to change warehouse limits in recipes panel.
Yeah, you can also like go to recipes panel and change the minimum reserve here right now.
Yeah,
So
I keep saying it's warehouse limit, but it's a warehouse reserve.
yeah,
And there's a production limit next to it.
yeah, exactly. So this is one of the changes. One of the other changes might interest you in the recipes panel is purging fire has finally made its way into the recipe panel, and that might seem like a very minor change. It was requested by a lot of players, but it seems like a simple change, because when you have the I don't have it because I'm not
You're not playing.
on the right difficulty, but you have this amazing weird building which is called the Blight Post, and it produces purging fire. But it's a weird building because it's not really a production building. It's not really a service building. It's something weird, and for the longest time you couldn't just go into the recipes panel and look it up here, but now you can. And why is that? Because we changed a lot for this update. We changed a lot in the background, so to speak. We revamped a lot of systems tied to villager behavior and so on. So that was one thing, the purging fire in the recipes panel. But now you can see here, this building is unconstructed, but I can assign workers to it already. That's because of those changes and overhauls to the villager behavior system. We can have now villagers switching roles on the fly. So I assigned 3 builders here, 3 harpies, and they will serve as builders, finish the building, and then seamlessly be blight fighters. And that has, like, it's for every building in the game, basically. Yep. And the other thing is also that, for example, now when you build a farm, I don't have farm fields here, fertile soil, so to speak. But now if you build a farm, you can like assign builders here to the farm. They will build the farm. They will then become farmers. And if you place down farm fields, they will build farm fields, still being farmers. So you don't have to unassign them the role of farmer. They will naturally build this by themselves. There's also like this a bigger change, which also was requested by a lot of players, which is that builders can now take resources from nearby buildings. They don't have to go all the way to the warehouse. They can go to the, for example, lumber mill or the woodcutter's camp and take wood directly from here to build a shelter somewhere. They're gonna go here regardless because
it's closer.
no matter. But it's now possible. The same thing with blight fighters. They can now use resources from nearby buildings. They don't have to go into this building all the time. So this is going to make the overall logistics of your settlement a bit easier, and you should notice that your town like flows a bit more naturally. The
And
other
if we're talking about villagers being assigned to buildings, they will now display
when you have a break, right?
Yep.
Yeah, mental break, yeah, like we have right now before the release. So you can see that you have these icons here on next to the worker panel, to the worker portrait, describing what the villager is doing. So if you wait for them to be on break, maybe finally, because of those changes to the villager behavior system, we can now show you how long they will take while on break. And nobody wants to go have a break. Why?
Something they first need to be assigned to something important, and immediately they will go on break.
They should. Okay, never mind. You have to just trust me on that. But there will be this break icon as usual, and the progress bar around. Oh, he goes to rest, and you can see when he finishes his break. And the same thing is for scouts, so you can now have a bit more of a bit clearer overview of what they're doing. The same thing when you select them. Previously you wouldn't really see what they're doing if you selected a specific villager. Now, oh, I destroyed his trees. Now you can see what he's doing and how long it will take. So now you can have a bit more information, even if you like just want to see what that one small villager does, why he's standing where he's standing, or so on. Okay, so let's move on. We talked about the villagers, the panels, the minimum reserve.
One small useful change is that when you hover over the firekeeper, it will display the tooltip with the firekeeper ability.
Yeah, so now when you assign a firekeeper, you don't need to like change them and look at this effect and know what is happening. You can just look here on the worker portraits. And I think there's also some things changing with, for example, the blight rot overview, but I don't have any cysts right now. So because foxes gained a new specialization, they are now blight rot, like they get a comfort bonus from blight rot cysts. So we can now, when deciding on which cyst the blight fighters should burn, you can now disable some of them. So let's just say a fox works here. Okay, no fox. Let's say a harpy is here and a fox is here. He gets a bonus for blight rot. And I want to keep that bonus for resolve. I want to make a very corruption heavy, weird settlement. So in order for those blight fighters to not burn these cysts, I can just disable that. Here's a tooltip for it, and they will ignore it for the next storm. I mean, forever until you put it back on. So it will allow you to like decide where your blight fighters should go, where you can keep those cysts, so you can keep the bonus for your foxes, and then you'll forget about it by accident, and you will get overrun by corruption, and you'll lose. So that's going to be fun, but I'm interested to see how corruption builds will now function with that change. We talked about the seal contracts, the firekeeper ability. There are also some smaller changes, like for example in the Citadel. When you go back to the upgrade screen, it will now scroll back onto the last upgrade you purchased. For us, it's gonna be the top of the list because we have everything unlocked, yeah. But if you, for example, are somewhere in the middle and you are level like 15 or something, it'll still transport you to the last unlock. So you can right away go there and buy something. There's also the change to the seal contract. So there was some feedback from players that they didn't really understand how seal contracts work, and there was a checkbox.
There were checkboxes there.
So it seemed like, okay, have I finished this seal? Why is there a checkbox? And it was just supposed to be like, okay, you can choose your own for the next cycle. You can choose which seals will be present on your map. So now we changed the look of this, and now you just have this type of UI. So it won't be confusing for you anymore, and you won't think it's just completed seals. It's something else. Hopefully. And there's a lot of description changes and localization improvements. I think Ron mentioned in the chat that there's also the diagonal tree change. So if you want to select with control, then you can use this option, which is in the options menu. You can use this option to, for example, ignore some trees or for them to be marked. So that's also one change that makes it into this update. Luke spoke previously about closing down settlements because of an update, and we will talk about that. I remind you about it at the end of the stream again. But yeah, just to be short, every big update closes your current settlement, and some players won't, and when we close your settlement, we give you the rewards you would get for winning the settlement. But some players felt that this is
also a royal resupply.
Yeah, a royal resupply. But some players felt
We're generous.
We're generous. I'm gonna start the sentence for the fourth time. Some players thought that it's a bit cheesy and cheating a bit. So we decided to give them the option to just opt out of the rewards. So if you don't want us to intervene in your settlement, you don't want the additional rewards for closing down your settlement because of an update, then we give you the option to opt out. I'm sorry, that sounded passive aggressive when I said that.
No,
it was just a joke.
It's just the only thing that I usually say during the streams. Now it's only you talking.
No, it's gonna be.
But you can now decline this reward if you don't want to.
Yeah. I think one good change in the UX department is the change to glide events. So here, for example, you have a red outline if you don't have a resource. I don't know why we didn't think of that sooner, because the red outlines are already present in production buildings and so on, but it was never really a feature in events. So a lot of players were confused that I assigned scouts, I selected a resource, I selected a reward, I investigated. And why aren't they working? And now you have a small red outline just around here, so that tells you that, you don't have that resource, you have to change it or you have to acquire it somehow. Don't assign the scouts right now, just to acquire the resource first. So that might be useful. We changed some things here on the impatience bar and the reputation bar. For example, it now shows you the exact numbers of how much you have versus the maximum. And there was a lot of smaller changes, which again we will go into tomorrow in the changelog. This stream is a bit chaotic. It's a lot of things to talk about. I think the most important ones we mentioned, but the other things, it's better to just see them in written format and go through them on your own. Now, there's also some other things beside balance, beside UX, which are, for example, in the previous update or 2 updates ago, we introduced the Kelpie, which is like a cool glade event that charms your villagers. But there is some confusion about, which villager is charmed, what is happening with them. So now we have a special status for that. So once you activate the Kelpie event and it charms your villagers, they will just go to the Kelpie and they will sit there charmed and dazed and wait around it, drawn to a weird beast, so we can see more easily what is happening and why it's happening, and it's a cool flavor thing. We said about changing some icons, some building appearances. some graphical stuff, and yeah, that's it. I
Yeah,
think.
that's not all.
That's not it. Yeah, that's still a lot
but
more.
all will be covered in the changelog. You can expect it on Steam when the game launches or shortly before, when the DLC and update launch or shortly before that. How about I switch to the trailer
yeah.
and we move on to the Q&A part.
Yeah.
There are some questions in the chat. So let's start with some organizational stuff. The update launches tomorrow, September 26th. Finally, it's been a long time since we last released an update. That's why this is such a big content drop. It's the biggest content drop in the game's history. The update and DLC combined. So there are a lot of changes to the game. We hope you like it, and as always, we recommend you let us know what you think. But the update goes live tomorrow around 5 p.m. UTC. It might be a little bit earlier, so make sure to finish your settlements. As Aaron mentioned, if you don't finish your settlement on time, you will get a reward as you would get for winning the game, and you will get also a real resupply. But we know that there are some cases where you'd prefer to finish the settlement, like you're in the middle of a very important deed or something like that. So make sure to finish it before tomorrow, 5 p.m. UTC. We will also make it possible to go back to version 1.3.4, which is the current version on the main branch, on the release version. It will be 1.3.5, sorry, because we were making some small change. But you will be able to switch back to this branch for whatever reason. Maybe you want to desperately finish your settlement and you won't have time until tomorrow. So we can switch to this branch on Steam. This is only on Steam. You can switch to this branch on Steam, finish the settlement there, go back. The whole instruction will be released in tomorrow's update notes. But because of the vast number of changes to the game, to the balance, maybe some of you grew accustomed to the current balance and you just don't want to, relearn all the recipes and stuff. That's why we also make it infinitely available for everyone. If you feel like, I don't know, you don't like the new changes, you can switch to the 1.3 pre-frogs branch, and this will be available for as long as this feature is available on Steam. So we will explain it in tomorrow's update notes.
But there's one thing we should mention, that if you are on 1.3.5, so we don't want the new changes, you will also not be able to play the DLC.
Yeah.
It's not like we allow you to go back into the balance of 1.3 and have the DLC in the frogs. They're just not compatible. So if you want to play the DLC and have the frogs, you need to be on 1.4 or later. And if you just want the vanilla experience, you don't want anything to do with the new changes, you stay on 1.3.5.
Yeah, that's a lot of technical talk. It will be explained in tomorrow's update notes and in a separate Steam guide. And now the other question that we're being asked a lot, it's about the DLC price. We are not revealing the price yet. Hooded Horse, our publisher will reveal the price tomorrow when the DLC launches. What they confirmed, we can confirm, is that there will be a launch discount. But why aren't they revealing the price just yet? There's a very good explanation behind that. It's not some secret knowledge. Team, the CEO of Hooded Horse, mentioned it a couple of times in various articles. I highly recommend reading anything from Hooded Horse. So Hooded Horse never reveals prices for their games before the release and local prices. Why? Because some key shops like to do pre-orders, so they will do a pre-order even if there's no pre-order for the game, but they will do it just to get your money before the release, so they can secure the funds, so you don't buy anywhere else, you just buy there because it's already available. So Hooded Horse doesn't want those key shops to have like any clue what what the price is, so they don't try to guesstimate what this could be. Like if they don't know the price, they cannot set the pre-purchase offer, and this is why the prices are not revealed yet. They will be revealed tomorrow. There will be a launch discount, and so that's the thing. Check out Steam and other platforms tomorrow. Okay, so that was the big one. What else? We had a lot of questions. Maybe, and by the way, now's the best time to ask questions if you haven't yet. There was a question I remember about events. Are we going to add new events to the game? There's one new, but it's not like a big one.
Yeah. It's like every species has their dedicated event, like fallen beaver traders and so on. And with frogs, it's the same thing. But with this update, we haven't really expanded the event pool. It's something for a different time, I would say.
Yeah, give us a moment. We're going
because,
through questions.
Okay, so I can expand on that as well. There's also a new haunted building, the Haunted Guild House. So it's also like a new event. But other than that, it's all the same things that were there, plus the new ruins for the new buildings. So it's still the pool is still only a bit expanded, not too much. While you're looking at questions, I can answer some of the ones which are like at the bottom of the chat. So, do you plan to do more DLCs in the future, and is there like a roadmap? I can't reveal anything. I can't reveal anything. No, it's not really certain right now. We'll want to see how the reception of this DLC is. So if you like it, if it's like something you are excited about, so we haven't really decided if we want to do another DLC. We want to update the game still, like that's for sure. We have some ideas, we have some things on the backlog that you asked for, or some player inspired features that are on Upvote, on Discord, and so on. So the game will be still updated, even just to improve the balance, add new UX features, like new events, new world events, for example. This is something that is very cool to add because it adds variety. But I can't really tell you exactly what will happen at what time frame. It all depends on this release tomorrow, and it also after 1.0 we have slowed down the update cadence for the game a bit, and mostly because for one we want the changes to be more polished, because in early access we were more we updated every 2 weeks, we gave you some unfinished features, we iterated with you.
Because we knew that they are very likely to be changed during the process. Right now, there are so many of you playing the game. We need to be extra careful, and as we're no longer in early access, despite what our Twitch description says, I need to update it. We are not in early access, so we don't want to break your settlements too often, and content drops usually mean closing settlements. So we'll see how you feel about the new changes. We will see how we feel about after the release, and when it comes to the roadmap for the next few weeks, months. I know that we are gonna get some rest.
I mean we're gonna get some rest, play some other games, but we'll still just to give you some promise, although I can't really promise anything, but I can tell you that we are not stopping with Against the Storm. We are still developing it, and we are still thinking of new ways we can improve the game.
And we will be looking closely at your feedback. As always, we don't always have time to answer the questions, but we are going through all the forums. We have everyone covers different area. Different social media. So moving on. to the question from the chat from the beginning.
Yeah.
If the game turns out to be easier with the new Citadel levels, is there any chance for higher difficulties?
This is something I think a lot of like high level players ask for, and we've talked about it in the office about some new ways of introducing more difficulty to the game. So yeah, if the game becomes too easy, we'll balance around it. We'll probably make it harder in the next update. I can't promise you like more prestige levels or new like challenge types, but we're looking at that. We're thinking about it.
Yeah, and also the new upgrades won't
Yeah, they're
make
not
this big difference.
they are not too much of a difference. They won't like be game breaking in the sense that you will just breeze through the game. There's still a lot of challenge in the game, and some of the changes to the balance, like we changed a lot of balance in 1.4, and not all the changes were like buffs. Some of them are nerfs. Some of them are just changes to rules, to existing buildings, recipes. So there's gonna be some aspect of you relearning those elements, so that's gonna be harder. There's some things that were just nerfs. For example, you can't make fabric out of leather anymore. But at the same time, we're basically observing this, and we're gonna adjust. The balance will be adjusted based on if the game becomes harder or less difficult. But I can't promise you new difficulty levels. We'll see about that. We still have to talk about it, and because it's always a question of if we do this, then we can't do a different thing. So every feature request, every piece of feedback is not only like weight by how good it is or how we like it. It's also weight on if we do this, we can't do this and this. So which one would we rather do? So it's always a difficult decision to make. But yeah, we'll let you know if something in that area moves to.
There was a question: do the warehouse limits prevent building? No, you can still construct new buildings, even if warehouse reserve is set. Another question was: are we going to see new metals in the game?
Not for now. No, I don't think so. The metal branch, I think, is in a better place than it was in 1.3. But we'll see. For now, we don't really want to introduce new resources just to have more resource variants. They should serve a role and be important for the balance. So if there is a need for a new metal, then and we find that it's important, then we will do it. But for now, I don't think we are seriously considering adding a new metal.
Yeah. Another cool question that's from Ron, because I know he knows the answer. What was the inspiration for the design of the frog buildings? And this is very cool. I love this so much because Damian, our graphic designer, when designing the frog architecture, he took the vase from ancient Greece. It's black and yellow, and inversed the colors so they were white and blue. And this is what inspired the architecture behind frog buildings. I cannot I wish I could show it to you on stream, but you get the idea.
I think Damian shared a picture somewhere on Discord of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did we move? There's a different background than the last stream. We moved like a year ago.
Yeah.
We're living in a different part of Wrocław, and we have Odra River nearby, which recently we were a little bit worried because of the floods in Central Europe, but we're all safe. I think that's it. I think that's all. So last final reminder: the update 1.4, the fishing update, and Keepers of the Stone DLC released tomorrow, September 26th. We are super excited.
Yeah.
There's one unfortunate news. We haven't confirmed it yet, but we think the Game Pass version will be delayed. The update and DLC might have a little delay. We're still waiting for the final confirmation, but it's likely they're not going to be released on the same day. Unfortunately, we're really sorry for that.
Yeah.
Another question was whether the DLC is free for PC Game Pass owners. It's available on Microsoft Store for PC Game Pass users, but it's not available in the PC Game Pass subscription, the base game is. The update goes live at sometime before 5 p.m. UTC. We need to release it a little bit earlier than the DLC,
Yeah.
so that when you get the DLC, you can like start playing right away. And yeah, we're super grateful that you joined us today, that you shared your feedback during the alpha testing. Huge thanks to alpha testers. And we cannot wait for you to play with the frogs and see if you love them as much as we do. Yeah, so, and share your screenshots with us with your new frog towns.
Yeah.
We cannot wait.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, thank you so much once again, and yeah, see you in Against the Storm tomorrow.
Yeah.
See ya.
On Discord, on Reddit.
And yeah, and what we're gonna do now is we're going to raid Run Empire for some more Against the Storm content.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.